We're going to restore power back to the people. We're going to recognize that regulatory uncertainty and the regulatory state needs to be reined in. We're going to make sure that the states are recognized with the authority they have, and we're going to do the work that's important to advance freedom and liberty for the future. Rulemaking matters. We're not going to have sue and settle. We're not going to have consent decrees. We're not going to lead that agency in a way that regulation through litigation. We're not going to bypass rulemaking. We're going to do the work that Congress has said that we must do to advance those issues. And as you go out into the rest of the country, know this, that the folks in Washington, D.C. have a new attitude. It's an attitude that no longer is, we're going to dictate to those across the country and tell them how to live each and every day. It's an attitude that says we're going to empower citizens and the states. It's an idea of federalism and believing in liberty. We're not going to have managed liberty anymore. We're going to believe in the Constitution and do the work that is provided here in Washington, D.C.
Joining us now, without further ado, Congressman, Republican 7th District, Dr. Dave Brat. Dr. Brat, good to have you with us.
Hey, John, great to be on. You teed it up just right. I heard the comments on the EPA. In one of my counties, just one regulation is going to cost Chesterfield County about $180 million. Mandates from the federal government. If you gave that to our state and local electeds, they would solve the problem, probably at half the price and half the money left over to make the air and the water even more clean. And that's what people don't get. I made a comment at the town hall. I said, the best thing you can do for the environment is grow your economy. And that's true. If you just go around the world, and I got all sorts of scorn for that statement, you go around the world, the richest countries have the cleanest air and the clean water. It's beyond dispute. We all want clean air and clean water, and the poorest countries, the folks don't have that option, right? They're just struggling hand them out. And so you had the logic just right. Let's let our state and local people who know their own creeks and rivers and lakes and bays and everything way better than the feds do. The feds just do this one size fits all. They tell everybody to do the same thing, and it fails every time on Obamacare, on every program they touch. It's failing right now. In the states, a lot of people think we're anti-government. We're not. We're pro-Constitution. We're pro our state. Commonwealth is well run. My counties are very well run. The people that run our counties and the administrators are hardworking people that do a great job, and we need to let them do their job.
Well, the perfect example, Dr. Brad, of what you're saying, the perfect living, breathing, real life successful example is how the state legislature and local government has revitalized Chesapeake Bay, right?
Yep.
It's the state that did the cleanup. It's the state that decided on the oyster levels. It's the state legislators and the people in Southeast Virginia that are representing the areas of the Bay that have been on the forefront of it, and we've revitalized Chesapeake Bay. Had nothing to do with the federal government. Zero, right? Zilch.
Yep.
So that's
you're right down there, and I know there's all sorts of issues. And the people down that are making their own businesses on the water, they want clean air, they want clean water, they want a beautiful place to live, and so they're working on it.
Okay, so about a week ago, you chaired the subcommittee meeting on economic growth, tax, and capital access. That was the first time you chaired that. I want to talk about a couple of the economic policies we might see from President Trump and his administration, because right now they haven't sent anything down. So let's start. We're going to get to his speech to the joint session in a moment, but let's start with some of the pieces you see coming from his economic package. And let's start with repatriation. Trump saying we've got $3 trillion. That's with a T. $3 trillion of U.S. money stuck outside of the U.S. that he would like to bring back. That's a lot of money to come into the United States, but problem is the taxes on getting them back is so high. What would be the Dave Brat policy to get the majority of that $3 trillion back into the United States?
Yeah, well, that's a huge issue. It's going to hopefully be part of our tax reform package coming up in about 3 months. We're first going to do Obamacare. And so you tax it at 10%. You lower the tax rate way down. All the firms bring $3 trillion over here. And then the $3 trillion, it primes the pump, right? It's just the amount of new capital investment in capital. And you put that much capital, $3 trillion, even just say $1 trillion, in the hands of American workers, and that's what makes us rich, right? If you look at poor countries, poor people don't work with much capital, right? They don't have machineries and assembly lines and huge plants to work in. If you just go back to the, Ford and the assembly line, you can just see it, right? Once you start putting machinery and technology and computers in the hands of American workers, your income goes from $500 a year to $50,000 a year in the last 200 years.
Right.
And so that's what we got to do. And I'm glad you brought up me chairing the subcommittee on economic growth. We had a young gentleman from Silicon Valley, Mr. Huang, came out and testified. And he's been saying what I've been saying on education for a long time. He said it better than I could. He said, I'm working with all these kids, and he says, all we do is teach kids how to put together a resume and how to get a job, right, for 18 years. We don't tell them how to do a job, how to create a product. We teach them how to put together a resume and how to say 4.0 and I got good grades, but we don't teach them how to do a job. And so we got to, from a young age, we got to start inspiring these kids to be entrepreneurial. And that was his big push. We're not teaching our kids to be entrepreneurial, and that is the road to success and riches. We want every kid in this country being entrepreneurial and successful.
All right. So, look, that's part of what we want. Let's get to President Trump's address to the joint session of Congress. Now, obviously, we know that those in the Democratic Party are going to sit on their hands. Their arms are going to be folded. We expect over the next day, several of them are not going to go, all that nonsense. In your mind, Congressman Brat, what do you think the president has to do tomorrow night to perhaps outline what his actually legislative agenda will be, which so far he hasn't done?
Yeah, no, that's right. He's got to. We're at crunch time right now, right? So there's a debate on whether Boehner, former Speaker Boehner, said this week we're not going to repeal and replace Obamacare in the news, right? So that's just a bunch of happy talk. It's not going to happen. And we got some people getting weak-kneed even on the Republican side. And so what he's got to do is light a fire under all of us and say, here's the exact timeline. In 1 month, I want a full Obamacare repeal. That's called the 2015 bill, where your House of Representatives voted to repeal and the Senate voted to repeal back when it didn't matter, right? Back when we knew it would get vetoed.
Right.
Well, now the pressure's on. And so for 6 years, we said we're going to repeal. And now it's the only vote that matters, right? And so if your rep is getting weak-kneed, get on the case. But Trump's going to lay out very methodically, I think, what this timetable is going to look like in terms of repeal and then replace. There will be a replace. And at my town hall, I tried to allay concerns, right? No one's going to have the rug ripped out from under them. We're going to have a 2-year transition plan. We're going to take care of pre-existing conditions, high-risk pools, and every single plan I've heard, those are there. And then the opponents yell you down in 20 seconds. They say they want to hear from you, and you explain all these nice features, and the mainstream news and the fake news won't report any of the nice features we have. So Trump's going to lay that out with his megaphone, and he can't be ignored by the fake news. And then he'll lay out all the regulatory reform. He'll lay out that consumer confidence is as high as it's ever been, investor confidence, the stock market, economic growth hopefully takes off with all these regs he's undoing so that small business can finally get back to doing their jobs without the federal government on their neck. And then corporate tax reform and the whole agenda there. Corporate rate reductions from 35 down to 20, individual tax forms on one page. Kevin Brady has laid that out already. And he'll tell us, hopefully, in detailed form what's coming.
So, Congressman Brat, do you look for President Trump Tuesday night? Do you think he has to, what you just said, should be the economic plan for the Trump administration going to Congress? Do you look for him to kind of outline that and say, this is what I'm sending to Congress, or this is what I'm looking for the Republican members to come back to me with? How would that play out? Just give us the detail.
Yeah, well, hopefully he's got to do more than the outline. So the outline he's been giving, he gave it in the inauguration, et cetera. Now it's time for him to, we're waiting for his leadership on these issues, right? So when it comes to repeal and replace, he said, I'm going to repeal. And the American people know what that word means, right? It means a full repeal because the current system is just totally broken.
It's a disaster.
So I said that in my town hall, and people wouldn't even agree with me on that. I mean, that's just a fact, right? Humana and Aetna and all the big insurance firms have pulled out of the market. There's counties without any insurer right now, and the mainstream fake news will not report any of these facts. That's the news, right? That's not an opinion piece. So the whole thing's failed. You don't get to choose your doctor. You don't get to choose your plan. The prices are going through the roof. The deductibles on the bronze plan are average $11,000. Kiter says the average family plan is $17,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mainstream press says, what about this scenario? What about this scenario? What about the scenario right now? Why
Right.
won't you report on the fact that no one can afford what's going on right now and it's totally broken? And so Trump needs to give us detailed messaging on exactly which of these features he is going to lead on. And then, if we disagree, we disagree. But I think what he's going to lay out, there's going to be broad agreement on. And it's what we promised the American people for 6 years. So we got to hold true.
Okay, so just so everybody knows that we're talking to Congressman Dr. Dave Brat, Republican, 7th District, Virginia. Dr. Brat, Obamacare, when we have these town hall meetings and all people talk about is, look, there's 20 million people that have insurance, that didn't have it, can't afford it, that got added to the rolls because they're subsidized. Now, what they don't talk about is, and I'm not sure that it is 20 million, but it's something, probably 10, 15, 20 million. But it's a big number. And then there's all these other people, middle-class Americans, who've been absolutely screwed by Obamacare with the average premium $17,000, average deductible now $8,000. So that's a disaster. Many of them have just totally opted out of the system. They can't afford the insurance. But the whole argument gets back to, what are you going to do with those people that have insurance now, that didn't have it in the past, that got the subsidy because the government, this is the government, created as this massive entitlement. So the whole argument comes down to, what do you do with the people that have the insurance now, that didn't have it pre-Obama care and can't afford any plan because they're getting it basically for free, right? So that's the gist of all these town hall meetings is, protect me, I'm getting it for free, don't throw me to the wolves. That's the crux of this whole replacement plan. What happens?
Yeah, well, and that's what's so fascinating. It doesn't matter what the issue is, right? So the far left has engineered near socialist policies that have failed, right? That have brought our economy to a screeching halt. We're not growing like we should. The Medicare and Social Security are insolvent at the federal level. We're not teaching kids that business is a good thing in K-12 education. There's not the innovation and dynamism in the economy there should be. And so now the car's in the ditch. They've put the car in the ditch, and now the Republicans are on the scene to fix it, right? And so they say, what are you going to do? Well, it's all of those together, right? What are you going to do with the 20 million people? That's your question.
Yes.
We're going to get them all jobs. We're going to put everybody in this economy to work because that has to be that way for starters. Any able-bodied person has to be working and have the pride and dignity of work that makes them feel great when they get up in the morning. I'm going to contribute to this society. I'm going to do what God put me on this planet to do. I have a purpose. I'm proud of my purpose. And we all play a key part there. And so that's number one. Why can't people afford Obamacare or insurance? Partly because we don't have people in the workforce.
Right.
And so we got to put everybody back together. Then you go back and you put free market health insurance in place so people with jobs can afford health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very simple, right? The premise behind every press question is, what's the government going to do for me? What's the government solution? Where's the government going to get my kid a job? Where's the government going to get my kid health care? Where's my government going to give me whatever, a free car, a free Obama phone, etc.? It's not the American premise. The American premise is we're proud of ourselves. We take care of ourselves, and we have a safety net for those who have needs. And we want to help the people who truly have needs, who cannot be in the workforce. This is the most generous nation on the face of the world, always has been, always will be. And so we have Medicare, we have Medicaid. People are eligible for up to $47,000 in federal benefits per year.
Right.
That's just federal, without state and local. So we're a very generous nation. But we've got to get back to the real premise, and that's the government does not provide you with every single part of your life, right? We got to get back to where independent folks and the labor market is the key piece we got to focus on. We got to get all of those folks that are underemployed. All the mainstream press quotes the unemployment rate at 4 whatever. They don't quote how many people have left the workforce. And Bernanke and Greenspan, not known to be right-wingers, at the financial crisis, they said, what's the worst part of this financial crisis? And their answer was that the folks that are dropping out of the workforce right now are going to lose their workforce skills. They're going to lose all those habits. They're going to lose getting up in the morning and taking pride in their life and going into work. And that's the biggest loss from that financial crisis. And so we need to fix that and turn this entire logic upside down and get this country back on track.
All right, so, that's not done in a day, okay? But if Obamacare is repealed in a day, 20 million people potentially that are not paying for their insurance lose it because it's an entitlement. So it gets back to my question. When you have a replacement plan, do you envision something that would phase those people out of the subsidy over time as they get jobs? Or is it just cold turkey, you're out on Tuesday, which is driving the protest? Am I making sense at all, Dave?
Yeah, no, right. But all of our plans have a 2-year transition, right? So no one's going to lose the plan they have.
Right.
There's going to be a between 1 to 2 year transition where they keep the plans they have.
Right.
So that's part of the answer. The other part of the answer is we have Medicaid and Medicaid expansion in some of these states has taken place already. So we're going to block grant money down to the states.
Right.
And then the states can help manage their populations as they know their populations better than the federal government.
Right.
The last thing you want to do is have federally run health care.
Right.
You don't want the government building your car. You don't want the government building your house, right? So we're going to block grant that money and let the states deal with the issues down there. Then we're going to allow people to shop across state lines to get their health insurance product. It'll be way cheaper that way because you'll have competition. And so the answer is making that product affordable again so people can go back to buying. If you're a young person, you don't need the full spectrum, right? You don't need a $17,000 package. You just need what fits your needs, catastrophic care. You can take care of yourself. And then an HSA, you can park a little bit of money into for ongoing expenses. And there's not a one-size-fits-all, right? And so the premise of the 20 million is everyone's the same. They got to all have the same huge, grossly expensive package, and that has failed. That has bankrupted the country. Mm-hmm. And so it's obvious you can't do what just bankrupted the country.
Look, I like your plan. Who is actually in charge of coming up with a replacement in Congress? Because it ought to be you, but who is it?
Well, the Better Way agenda had about 18 bullets, and that's all that's out there right now. That's one of the tension points right now is we're all waiting for that finalized product to come out. And then you say that at the town hall, and people don't believe you. But Tom Price, the Secretary of HHS, now is coming up with his plan with leadership, Paul Ryan on the Congress side. And then Rand Paul has an excellent plan. And under all those plans, there's high-risk pools, there's ways to handle pre-existing conditions to guarantee that happens in the transition phase. And unfortunately, the mainstream media will not educate the people on these plans, right? Instead, they just cover these protests.
Right.
And then the protests aren't informed by the policy that's already on the way. And so people are just calling each other names. I had 10 cameras in my face the other night after the town hall, and I asked them, I said, can you tell me the health care plan that the across the aisle the Democrats have? And it was crickets.
Well, they don't have one.
So we have several plans. And unfortunately, on the other side of the aisle right now, there's just crickets. There's no alternative plans.
There's no alternative.
There's just anger right now, right? And I understand it. The Republicans have not done a good job of communicating.
Right.
We should be out telling people exactly what the transition looks like.
Right.
And we haven't done that. So we need to do a better job.
You know what? You are so right on that, Dr. Dave Brat. Down the line, you need to have town hall meetings. You need to communicate what you're doing. And right now we're in no man's land because Obamacare is going to get repealed. Nobody knows what the replacement is. You guys are working on it. And so there's this black hole and everybody's upset. And obviously they're trying to influence what the replacement is going to be, which is what the objective of protests are, to influence policy. But they have anger, but they don't have any solutions to anything which is why the Republicans are going to win, I'm telling you, a bigger majority in 2018, because the Democrats right now are crying, complaining, jumping up and down, but they don't have an agenda. Trump and the Republicans have a clear agenda, and we look forward to that coming out on Tuesday evening and then beyond that. Dr. Brat, final word. You got it.
Yeah, hey, and I watch the Sunday shows, and the Democrats, you're right, they do not have an agenda, and what they'll say is, Robert Reich and all these guys, is we're going to do education. Education spending has gone up 375%, and test scores are flat.
Right.
And education is a monopoly that has been owned by the left for the past 30 years.
Right.
Right? Our teachers are salt of the earth doing the Lord's work, but they're getting a federal top-down mandate, then state mandates they got to live under. And it's the perfect example of what's gone wrong. We have not taught our kids. I taught economics for 20 years, freshman college kids. They're coming out of 13 years of education, and they don't know a price from a cost from a profit. Mm-hmm. They don't know the basic terminology of business, much less accounting or marketing or any of that. Mm-hmm. We've got to turn this thing upside down and give these kids some hope, especially the kids in the inner cities, the rural kids. And we're going to offer them some options, finally, to get them in the labor pool.
All right.
And so I'm hugely optimistic about what's going to happen, and we're going to win because we've got real solutions.
I want to thank Dr. Dave Brat for being with us. More information, go to davebrat.com, davebrat.com. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network. We'll be right back.